5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
Thunderbirds, my favorite TV show of all time. This is the series I grew up with. Appearing on our screens for the first time back in 1965, this show has captured the imaginations of many kids over the years, including me back in the 2000s. Focusing on using string puppets and small models, this show was truly ahead of its time for when it first came out. And so, to celebrate the Thunderbirds' 60th anniversary, I have decided to count down my top 10 best episodes from the series. If you're a fan of Thunderbirds and have a list of your top 10 best episodes from the series, feel free to list them in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to see them. So without further ado, let's get to it. Thunderbirds are go. Number 10. Desperate Intruder. Originally I was going to put Brink of Disaster on this spot, but after rewatching this episode, I think this one had the slightly better storyline. This episode starts off with the Hood, the proxy main antagonist of the series, who is after the secrets of international rescue. He uses his powers to hack into the mind of the Tracy's household manager, Kirano, and force him to tell him what International Rescue is planning next.
They are leaving tomorrow to make a survey of the temple.
From what he was told, Brains and Tintin were planning to head to an oasis called Lake Anasta, where a temple lies at the bottom of it and said to hold buried treasure. After arriving, they meet up with a man named Professor Blakely, who is also joining in on the mission. However, the Hood is also present at the oasis, who is also after the treasure, and so he hides in a submarine of his and spies on the trio underwater. As Brain and Tintin head down, the Hood follows them in his sub, and they find the temple. As they enter, Brain searches for the column that he believes is said to hold treasure, and it pays off as they find a small emerald and take it back to the professor to check it out. However, later that night, trouble begins to brew as Brains gets an uninvited visitor from the Hood who is in disguise, as he uses his powers to knock Brains out cold.
Who are you?
Tintin and the professor are also knocked out, and then the next morning, Brains wakes up to find himself buried in the sand, and the Hood tries to force him to tell him where the treasure is, but due to the heat, Brains loses conscious. Back at the island, as Jeff tries to reach out to them, he receives no response and decides to send Scott, Virgil, and Gordon out. After arriving, Scott finds Brains in the sand and frees him from it. But little did they know, the Hood was back in his sub using his photoscope to capture footage of Thunderbird 1 and 2, setting off the photo alarm, but Scott doesn't hear it. Virgil enters the caravan and discovers Tintin knocked out and manages to wake her up, where she tells Virgil what happened last night, that she and the professor were attacked by a mysterious stranger. However, Scott then discovers the photo alert and informs the others about it. Brains then realizes what this meant, that they have been lured into a trap. Later that night, Brains couldn't sleep, knowing that someone is spying on them, and tells Tintin that he's going back down to see what's down there, while Tintin stays in touch with him on the radio. When Brains returns to the temple, he discovers more treasure at the column that he found the emerald in. However, he also finds a cable underneath a rock, setting off an alarm in the Hood's sub. As Brains follows the cable, the Hood leaves his sub and heads for the temple, causing the two to come across each other again, and the Hood uses his eye powers to knock Brains out cold again.
Those staring eyes.
Of brains.
The Hood then returns to his sub and fires a torpedo to destroy the temple, and buries Brains in rubble. Gordon fires up Thunderbird 4 and goes down into the oasis to search for Brains. As he reaches the temple, the Hood spots him and fires a torpedo at Thunderbird 4, barely missing him. Gordon chases after him and shoots through the sub with a torpedo of his own, damaging the motors inside.
My motors! They're flooding!
The Hood is left with no choice but to abandon his sub and abort mission. Gordon then locates Brains along with lots of treasure scattered around after the explosion. Scott is sent down with a special air balloon kit to lift up the pillar that's keeping Brains down. After retrieving Brains, the rope on the air balloon breaks and the pillar falls back down. But thankfully Brains has been saved. After the rescue, the professor is taken to the hospital where Brains and Tintin visit him as he tells them about another excursion in a book that he's reading and asks if they want to be part of it. But Brains and Tintin decide to decline and head for home instead. Number 9. Terror in New York City. This episode could be considered an alternative timeline where a tragedy involving the Empire State Building takes place. The episode begins with the International Rescue taking out a fire from a burning oil tower in an oil rig site. In the background was a news reporter named Ned Cook and his cameraman Joe, who are watching the action, but wanted to get footage of it for the story. After the mission was a success, Scott chases after Ned and Joe, eventually wiping out the footage from the camera with a device from Thunderbird 1. Scott takes off, leaving Ned and Joe with no story to report.
There goes your story, Ned.
Along the way back to base, a ship called the USN Sentinel picked up Thunderbird 2 on its radar, but mistaken for an unidentified aircraft. They decide to fire missiles at it. Missiles 1 and 2 miss, but the next 2 missiles hit him. Virgil struggles to maintain Thunderbird 2 as the ship launches its last 2 missiles. However, thanks to Jeff, he radioed to the ship's base at Washington and pointed out that the aircraft was Thunderbird 2, and the crew of the ship destroyed the last 2 missiles.
Clayton, missiles 5 and 6, destroy them.
Virgil manages to reach the landing pad of the island in time and passes out. Later on, Virgil wakes up in the sickbay all bandaged up and gets word from Jeff that Thunderbird 2 will be out of order until it's repaired. Later on, the Tracys watch a special report by Ned Cook about the project on moving the Empire State Building to its new location in the city. The building is connected to these giant atomic motors that move the building along. However, as the project proceeds, a massive earthquake breaks out, causing the atomic motors to shut down. Suddenly, the ground collapses below Ned and Joe, sending them into a large pit. Thankfully, they survive the fall. However, things start to get worse as the atomic motors start to explode, sending the Empire State Building tipping over and sealing the 2 men in the pit.
She's coming down. Right on top of us.
Thankfully, Ned and Joe lived, but not for much longer. As another reporter communicates with him through the radio speaker, Ned points out that water is seeping into the pit that they're in, meaning they'll drown over time. Brains then realizes that the cause of the earthquake was underground rivers, meaning it's a job for Thunderbird 4. However, with Thunderbird 2 badly damaged, being a long way to New York, and limited time to rescue Ned and Joe, Jeff thinks it's impossible to do so. However, Virgil suggests the Sentinel to pick up Thunderbird 4 and take it to New York, with the hopes of arriving before it's too late. Jeff agrees and sends Scott and Gordon on the way. Back in New York, the police arrive to communicate with International Rescue throughout the trip about the situation. Along the way, Gordon is picked up by the crew of the Sentinel and taken to New York, where they have 24 hours to arrive, while Ned and Joe have less than 24 hours before they are underwater, making the rescue operation in a tight spot. As Scott arrives at the scene, diving equipment are sent down for Ned and Joe to use while they're underwater, giving them some spare time to be rescued. Later that night, the water reaches up to their waists and the water is freezing cold, and Ned points out that they have until 10 AM till they're underwater, but things get even tighter as Gordon reports to Scott that he'll be arriving around 10:05. As time passes, the water rising increases, changing to 9 AM till they're underwater. The diving gear sent down to them has enough oxygen to last for 2 hours, giving Gordon only 1 hour before it's too late. As morning comes, the water has reached Ned and Joe and are forced to put the diving gear on.
The mask! Put the masks on! Hey, we've got the gear on. Now we've got to sit here and wait for our air to run out.
As the Sentinel was close enough, Thunderbird 4 is finally released and off to New York to locate the underground river and rescue the two men who are now following the cave. It didn't take long for Gordon to find it, as he enters and begins the search. However, bigger trouble was approaching, as the police got a message from Central Control, reporting that the Flumer Finance building is due to collapse at any moment, giving Gordon less time to find the men and get out alive.
Fulmer Finance? Now, which building is that?
That one.
Ned and Joe struggle as their oxygen tanks begin to run out, but Gordon eventually finds them and gets them in. But suddenly, the building begins to tip over, risking Gordon's chance in making it out alive.
Gordon! She's falling! Down!
Thankfully, Gordon managed to make it out of the cave at the last second and saving the day. The episode ends with Ned Cook's show, where he shows up on stage to say a big thanks to International Rescue, who are secretly watching them in the crowd.
But somehow my words will reach those gallant people. International Rescue, on behalf of Joe and myself, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Number 8. Move and You're Dead. This episode starts off with a bang, as we see Alan and Grandma Tracy forced onto a bridge where two men drive away in Alan's car, leaving the two stranded on a high beam. However, their lives are at stake, whereas they can't move. According to the man that took them hostage, the device sitting beside Alan is a generator that is connected to a powerful bomb that has been placed on the underside of the bridge, which is something that really bugs me because I really want to know how those men managed to attach that bomb on the bottom of such a high bridge. Whatever. According to what the men said, the generator is the bomb's power source that if it picks up any movement from its hostage, will trigger it, signaling the bomb to explode. In other words,
keep absolutely still. This vision's based on movement.
It's hard enough having to stay still for so long while being stuck on a bridge. It's even harder when it's on such a blazing hot day. However, Alan carefully reaches his watch to call up Jeff to alert him about the situation. Jeff wastes no time and alerts Scott, Virgil, and Brains, and the three of them take off in Thunderbirds 1 and 2. Back on the bridge, Grandma Tracy passes out due to the heat getting to her.
To hold on.
Grandma.
As Jeff calls Alan back, he decides that Alan should fill him in on everything that happened that got him and Grandma in this situation. As Alan begins his story, we get a flashback to where it all began, with Virgil taking Alan down in Thunderbird 2, where he takes off in his brand new car that he's going to use for the upcoming race. As he arrives, Alan takes his car to the stacker to the racetrack and meets up with his friend Kenny. As the two chat, Alan spots another racer named Victor Gomez along with his client Johnny. Both Alan and Gomez compete in the race with many other racers. As we cut to the race, we see 3 cars remaining, Alan taking the lead while Gomez is trailing him and the third car right behind. However, as they get to the last lap, the third car loses control and crashes into some trucks, leaving only Alan and Gomez as the two fight for the first place spot. Eventually, Alan wins the race and leaves Gomez growing jealous of him.
We should have fixed his engine like I said, Johnny.
Boy, I'd like to lay my hands on the designs for that car.
Yeah.
The Tracys were watching the race on TV as they see Alan being handed the trophy for winning the race. As we cut back to the present, Scott was on his way at maximum speed. As Jeff continues to listen to Alan's story, Alan starts to struggle to reply due to the heat getting to him.
Alan, answer me.
Alan? Mr. Tracy, he doesn't answer.
The story continues with the next flashback as Alan and Kenny return the car to the stacker, as Alan makes a call to Grandma Tracy. Little did he know, Gomez and Johnny broke into the control box, knocking out the man controlling it and takes over in order to kill Alan, but left it too late. After the call and a break in the lounge, Alan drives over to Grandma's house to pick her up and suddenly confronted at gunpoint by Gomez.
Gomez.
Yeah, that's right, Tracy. Fancy meeting you and the little old lady.
Johnny shows up, also armed, and forces Alan to drive them to the bridge, where Alan is given the generator and forced onto the bridge, like I mentioned earlier. As they end up on the high beam, Gomez explains the situation.
We're gonna keep you covered till we've left the bridge. And then you've only gotta make just one move and disturb the ultrasonic waves from that generator and pow! The whole place goes up ahead of schedule.
Gomez and Johnny take Alan's car and drive off, wrapping up Alan's story. After explaining his story, the heat gets more intense and Alan begins to feel weaker, making him start to lose strength in his legs. With time running out, Scott calls up Alan and to ask him about the dangers of the bridge.
Keep away. Just one move, and the whole place goes up.
That's no use.
As Alan was beginning to lose hope, Jeff encouraged him to keep holding on. Virgil finally arrives, and Brains leaves in the pod with a neutralizer. As he spots the generator on the bridge with Alan and Grandma Tracy, he activates a powerful buzzing noise from the neutralizer, affecting the generator and giving Virgil a chance to save the two, where he uses a machine with powerful air jets able to allow people to float. As he arrives, Alan collapses, falling off the bridge and safely caught by the air jets. After both Alan and Grandma are rescued, Virgil clears off the bridge and the bomb explodes, taking out the whole bridge. As for Gomez and Johnny, they are confronted by Scott, who chases after them in Thunderbird 1 and fires at them. Johnny and Gomez fight over the steering wheel, causing the car to lose control and sending the two to a well-deserved demise.
And they got crazy. They're gonna crash.
After rescuing Alan and Grandma, the group set off for Tracy Island. After arriving, Virgil paints a picture of Alan holding his trophy. And yes, Alan is forced to stay still yet again. Thankfully, Virgil finishes it and shows it to Alan. The results were not what Alan had expected. Word of advice? Never upset Alan.
Right. Laugh this one off.
Hey, cut that out. Hey, quit messing around with those buttons.
Number 7. Pit of Peril. This is the second episode of the series. When I was little, I wasn't exactly a fan of this episode, but looking at it now, I've started to come around to liking it. This episode opens up set in the safari of Africa. Then out of nowhere, a monstrous machine called the Sidewinder, owned by the US military, is out on a jungle test, while keeping in touch with the general in the copter watchdog. After completing the jungle test, the team prepares to depart back to base, but suddenly, as the Sidewinder leaves the jungle, it unknowingly walks over a hidden underground pit, where the ground beneath begins to sink due to the weight of the Sidewinder. The Sidewinder loses its balance and tips over, falling into the now opened pit. After the fall, the copter watchdog spots smoke in the distance and goes to check it out. They contact the Sidewinder, where the crew is knocked out but quickly gain consciousness. As the leader of the crew picks up the call, the general asks him how deep the pit is.
How far down are you?
General, we're 300 feet down. 300 feet? Ralph, what do we do?
Being in a 300-foot deep pit and with a machine that weighs over 500 tons would be impossible to pull out. The lieutenant, being brave enough, offers to call in an aircraft to take him down the pit to find the Sidewinder. After calling one up, the lieutenant is sent down into the pit to locate the Sidewinder. However, up at Thunderbird 5, John listens in on the situation and decides to call up Jeff to alert him about the situation. John connects the radio and the gang listens in.
100 feet down. I can't see a thing.
Back at the safari, the lieutenant makes his way down by cable and finds the Sidewinder tipped over on its side and is brought back up. Back at Tracy Island, Scott suggests flying down to the safari to see if they need help, but Jeff denies it, thinking this could be a top-secret operation, but decides to put Scott on standby while they continue listening in. Later, while the lieutenant rests up, another man is sent down the pit, this time with a cable line to attach to the leg of the Sidewinder. As he approaches the Sidewinder, he successfully attaches the cable to the leg. Suddenly his face starts to heat up and shouts to be winched up back up, showing us just how intense the heat is down there.
Winch up! Ah! Come on, get him up!
After being pulled back up, the aircraft drops the cable for the crew of the watchdog and takes off with both men to the hospital. With the cable now attached to the copter, they attempt to pull the Sidewinder out of the pit, but the cable breaks and the Sidewinder tips back on its side. With not much left they could do, they call up the only organization that could help, the Thunderbirds, as Scott takes off along with Virgil and Brains taking off in Thunderbird 2 with Pod 5. After some time, Scott finally arrives. However, back in the Sidewinder, the radio cuts off as smoke seeps in through a crack in the wall, meaning the Sidewinder will break. With only 2 hours remaining, Scott sends a drone down the pit to take a look at the damage. One of the crew members struggles to turn down the fire from the crack. After Virgil arrives, the three men check the footage of the drone and find some old equipment used from World War II, meaning this pit was once a dump for military equipment. Brains then suggests that they remove the remaining of the crust in the pit in order to pull the Sidewinder out. Virgil is sent down in a special protective suit and places explosives around in the pit, but in the Sidewinder, one of the men begins to lose conscious. Meanwhile, Scott brings out a super mining drill called the Mole that he uses to dig underground to pick up Virgil. After retrieving him, they bring out 2 recovery vehicles. The explosives go off to make it easier for the recovery cars to pull the Sidewinder out. Approaching the pit, they fire powerful cables onto the Sidewinder and start pulling it out of the pit. The weight of the Sidewinder was a challenge to pull out, even causing one of the cables to loosen off. Virgil fires the cable back on, and with enough strength and effort, the Sidewinder is finally removed from the pit, and the crew have been saved.
We're safe. It's a miracle. They've got us out of the pit.
After passing out, the leader wakes up in a bed, along with his other crew members, and thanks Scott for the rescue. As the crew of the Sidewinder is taken to hospital, the General thanks Scott for everything. The two go their separate ways, and it is another mission accomplished. Number 6. The Mighty Atom. A fun fact about this episode is that this is probably the only episode in the whole series to feature every single Thunderbird machine and pretty much every main character of the series. We begin at an atomic station in Australia, where the Hood causes chaos fighting off security. He fires a shot at the gas tank, setting off an explosion, causing an emergency evacuation. After the explosion, a meeting is held about the incident at the atomic station, where the general points out the explosion caused a radioactive cloud that is spreading throughout the land, and the news about it spreads like wildfire around the world. Back at the Hood's temple, the Hood had other plans. After attempting to steal the secrets of the atomic station, he now focuses on his original plan to steal the secrets of international rescue. Meanwhile, over at Tracy Island, Lady Penelope, a London agent who works for International Rescue, has come to pay a visit to the team. Her butler, Parker, is also here, and who I think is the funniest character in the series, as we get a funny moment between him and Kirano.
Forgive me, but I insist. Take your meat off my tray.
From the sound of it, we're gonna stay thirsty.
However, one night, the Hood arrives at the Governor Research Unit, disguised as a professor, where he and a group of men are presented with a latest invention by a man named Holden, an electronic mouse fitted with tiny cameras in its eyes, better known as the Mighty Atom. The Hood gets chosen to help by controlling the mouse and demonstrates by taking pictures of Holden checking the controls.
Thank you, Professor.
The Hood then uses his eye powers to knock all the men out cold and steal the Mighty Atom in attempts to use it to steal the secrets of not only international rescue, but the whole world as well.
Mine!
Back at Tracy Island, Lady Penelope has been dying to go on a mission with International Rescue, but the organization hasn't had one since quite some time. But that all changes, as elsewhere, the Hood arrives at another atomic station to test out the mouse by sneaking it into the station to take pictures. At some point, one of the workers spots the mouse and it runs for cover.
Hey, what the... Mice. I don't know what this place is coming to.
After getting many pictures inside the atomic station, the Hood gets an evil idea to lure International Rescue here, where he has a flashback of the previous atomic station he invaded.
Of course. While I'm here, why not destroy the atomic station and bring out International Rescue?
After some time, the Hood has placed explosives around the atomic station and set them off to explode. The two workers inside are alerted and find out that the cause of all this is sabotage.
Control Board 5! Wait! Look at Control Board 5!
Sabotage! Nothing else can explain it. It must be sabotage!
And so, the workers call up International Rescue just as the Hood planned. Scott, Virgil, and Gordon take off along with Lady Penelope, who insisted on coming along. Along the way, back at the atomic station, as the reactor begins to increase, one of the workers manages to lower the pressure, giving them enough time for International Rescue to arrive. Once there, the Hood sees Thunderbird 1 arrive at the atomic station, while Virgil drops off Pod 4 in the ocean to release Gordon in Thunderbird 4, where he is given instructions to fire missiles at the sea intake to stop the water from coming in to prevent the explosion. As Thunderbird 2 touches down, the Hood proceeds to the next part of his plan and fires up the mouse, guiding it to Thunderbird 2. Penelope stays on board while Virgil heads into the atomic station to help Scott with the reactor. With both Scott and Virgil all suited up in protective suits, they head into the reactor chamber with only 5 minutes remaining, as they are instructed to push the bars of each of the reactor in the right position to restore it.
Hold it, Virgil.
The pressure of the heat starts to increase, and with only 90 seconds left, Scott and Virgil manage to restore the final reactor, where Gordon fires missiles at the sea intake, preventing the explosion, and saving the atomic station.
They've done it! By Jove, they've done it!
Just listen to that silence.
Back in Thunderbird 2, Penelope is reading a magazine when she gets an unwanted visitor. However, back at the Hood's temple, with the mouse back in his possession, he places it on the film projector and is excited to see what the mighty atom has to offer. Unfortunately for him, the pictures were not what he expected, as they turned out to be a terrified Lady Penelope, blocking the view of the inside of Thunderbird 2. The Hood's plans have failed yet again, and results in one of my favorite defeats of the series.
You stupid, foolish, idiotic failure!
Number 5. Sun Probe. I remember when I was little, I used to watch this episode a lot. This episode features a rocket ship called the Sun Probe, where 3 astronauts are on a mission to launch a probe to the sun. The episode opens up with a takeoff sequence, and it honestly feels like we're watching one in real life, the way I see it. As the Tracys are watching the takeoff live on TV, Jeff asks where Brains is at, and we cut to Brains in the lab with his latest invention, an AI robot named Brayman. And I'd have to say, what an unusually original voice they have given him.
9 a.m. monitor electronic telecast from Cape Kennedy. 11 a.m. check Thunderbird 2 alarm systems. 1 p.m. have supper.
Gee, Brains, your robot is sure improving nicely.
Scott lets Brains know about the Sun Probe, but says he's too busy improving Brayman's intelligence. Brains decides to give him a game of chess, hoping he could improve his mathematical powers. Back on the TV program, a professor of the Sun Probe organization explains the details about the mission.
The probe will then fly through a prominence. Automatically, it will collect particles of matter from the flare. And so we will have a piece of the sun.
Back on board the Sun Probe, after launching into space, the ship approaches the sun and the 3 men prepare to fire at the limb as they head for orbit in 38 minutes. However, there is a huge risk that if they miss the orbit, it will result in them heading for the sun. As the heat builds up, they increase a special aircon unit as the Sun Probe continues onward. Back at Tracy Island, we see Brains teaching Brayman chess. Jeff comes in to alert Brains about the Sun Probe, but is still busy. Back with the Sun Probe, the astronauts fire the retros and end up on the right time. They then launch the probe from the rocket towards the sun. As it approaches through the flare, the astronauts fire the remote control rockets. After a direct fire, the mission was complete, and the astronauts retrieve the probe and prepare to return to Earth. However, things go wrong according to Brains. As the ship retrieved the probe, it has locked a course and is heading straight for the sun. And Brains explains what went wrong.
The solar ship had to steer onto a collision course with the sun.
Despite being part of the plan, the radiation at its distance wasn't interfere with the ship's controls. Now with 3 astronauts' lives at stake, Jeff calls up Cape Kennedy, the man in charge of the Sun Probe organization, to be given acceptance to attempt rescue operation. Meanwhile, as the Sun Probe continues its collision course, the astronauts try firing the retros again, but have no luck.
Guess the radiation level's too high for the Earth to get the safety beam through. We're too close to the sun.
I'm getting closer every second.
Jeff and the gang work out a plan to rescue the Sun Probe heading into disaster. Brains thinks that firing the retros by a radio beam would work. Scott suggests taking Thunderbird 3 to fire the retros, but Virgil believes Thunderbird 2's transmitter truck may have a more powerful retros. But Gordon suggests that both Thunderbirds 1 and 2 jump into action, and the decision is made. Scott, Alan, and Tintin board Thunderbird 3 and launch into space in attempts to reach out to the Sun Probe before it's too late. Meanwhile, Virgil and Brains board Thunderbird 2 and take off to a mountainside, and the mission is now in session. As we cut back to the Sun Probe, things start to get worse as the refrigeration unit has reached its last level, and the astronauts only have 24 hours left till they crash into the sun. However, they soon get a call from Thunderbird 3 stating they've come to help them by firing retros out to them. They give it a try but fail to reach out due to the distance.
We're 4 hours short.
4 hours? But that means we'll have to go much closer to the sun than was estimated.
Later on, Jeff gets a call from Virgil stating they've arrived at their destination up in Mount Arkin. After touching down, Virgil and Brains leave the pod in a transmitter truck and head for a promising position to fire the retro beam. Virgil and Brains try their retros, but turns out it wasn't powerful enough, and so Brains makes a few adjustments to the wiring. However, the sun probe was beginning to burn up, and the astronauts were beginning to dehydrate from the heat. Things don't go well for Thunderbird 3 as the heat starts to get to them as well. They try the retros again, but was still too short. Tintin then raises the system up, and this time the signal reaches the sun probe, firing its retros and moving them away from the sun.
It's the rocket motors. They fired. Asher, Cam, we're leaving the sun. We're gonna live.
As the mission was complete, Thunderbird 3 prepares to return. Suddenly, things go horribly wrong, as their retros fail to fire. Now Thunderbird 3 is in the same situation the sun probe was in, and is locked on course heading straight for the sun.
Alan, we're still on a collision course with the sun.
As Jeff and the others listen to the report, they soon find out about Thunderbird 3 on a collision course and calls up Brains to alert him and Virgil about the unfortunate news. Virgil asks Brains what they are going to do to save Thunderbird 3 before it is too late. Brains then gets a silver lining, in hopes that it works, by using a mobile computer that they packed with them to use for the retros. But as they get to the pod, they open up the box said to hold the mobile computer, but holds an unexpected surprise inside.
Raymond! Oh, no! Virgil, we brought the wrong box!
Now things are in a tighter spot. With Thunderbird 3 in danger, the crew passed out, and no mobile computer on hand, hope seems to be slipping away from international rescue. However, thanks to Virgil, Brains gets a new silver lining that Brayman may be the only hope in calculating the equation for the retros.
45,969. It worked, Brains, it worked!
I only hope it's right.
Now with the results, Brains and Virgil use the retro beam on Thunderbird 3. And to their great relief, the retros fire and Thunderbird 3 change course, escaping from the sun. And it was all thanks to Brains and his handy AI, Brayman.
Yeah, thanks, Brains.
Thanks, Brains.
Thank you, Brains.
Number 4. Trapped in the Sky. The episode that started it all. That's right, folks. You all knew this episode was going to be on here. This is where International Rescue's journey began. It begins at the Hood's temple, with the Hood using his eye powers to hack into Kirano's mind to find out when International Rescue begins operating. Meanwhile, we cross to London Airport, where we see Tintin waiting for her flight, where a lieutenant informs her that she will be taking flight in what's probably my favorite aircraft of all time. The Fireflash. And what a beauty of an aircraft this is. I honestly wish this aircraft was real, because I would love to take a ride in the Fireflash. However, as the Fireflash is almost ready for departure, we see the Hood disguised as an engineer, hijacking the Fireflash by placing a bomb on the hydraulic system.
If this doesn't bring international rescue on the scene, nothing will.
After boarding, Fireflash takes off and sets for Tokyo. Back at London Airport, the control tower gets a call from the Hood about the bomb in the Fireflash. Commander Norman radios Fireflash to return to London Airport to pass by and get an X-ray photograph. Meanwhile, up in space, we are introduced to John for the first time, who listens in on the conversation between Fireflash and London Tower through the radio. The Fireflash passes London Tower, getting a perfect photo to put in the X-ray machine. As the picture comes through, Norman spots the bomb and realizes this was no hoax.
There it is.
This is no hoax.
According to what the Hood mentioned, the bomb will explode when the fire flash touches down, meaning they are, you guessed it, trapped in the sky. As things seem bad for London Tower, John radios Tracy Island to report their very first emergency call to Jeff. And for the first time, international rescue jumps into action, with Scott taking off in Thunderbird 1 and Virgil taking off in Thunderbird 2 with Pod 3. Meanwhile, London Tower gets some help from an aircraft called Target 1, where a pilot named Bob volunteers to fly up to Fire Flash in Target 1 and attempt to remove the bomb from it. After boarding with 2 other pilots, Target 1 takes off to catch up with Fire Flash. Along the way, Target 1 now ends up in front of Fire Flash, where they proceed to the next step of their mission, where Bob is winched out to the Fire Flash. The pilots of Fire Flash open the hatch to the engine, and Bob grabs on. As he searches, Bob finds the bomb but can't reach it, and tries another way. Suddenly, the bar he grabs detaches, and he falls out of the Fire Flash.
He's fallen!
Thankfully, Bob opens up his parachute in time and lands safely. After attempt failed, Norman decides that the only chance left is for Fire Flash to land in hopes that the bomb fails to explode. However, one of the men check at the radar and pick up Thunderbird 1, approaching London Airport at an incredible speed of, holy crap, in 7.5 thousand miles per hour.
7.5 thousand miles an hour. Have you gone crazy?
Scott radios the control tower and asks for permission to help rescue Fire Flash. With permission granted, Thunderbird 1 touches down, and Scott requests for airport police to guard his aircraft. Little did he know, the Hood was present at the airport and disguises as a police officer. He uses his powers to take pictures of Thunderbird 1 with a hidden camera inside his police cap. Meanwhile, up in the control tower, Scott shares his plan with Norman about the rescue attempt and contacts the crew of the Fire Flash to play along with it. The Hood breaks into Thunderbird 1 and proceeds to take pictures of the inside, but then the automatic camera detector picks up the source of the camera and alerts it to Scott.
The automatic camera detector, quick! Someone's photographing the instrument panel of Thunderbird 1. It's imperative that you get this man and stop him!
Before they could confront him, the Hood drives off with the pictures, and Scott calls up the one person capable for this job, Lady Penelope. After being alerted, Penelope summons Parker to get the Rolls Royce ready, called the F.A.B. to track down the Hood and stop him. Back at London Airport, Thunderbird 2 arrives and sends out 3 elevator cars equipped for the mission. With the elevator cars in position, the mission begins as Fire Flash begins its approach to the runway. With only 5 minutes remaining until the crew and passengers are exposed to radiation, the elevator cars start tracking as the Fire Flash reaches the runway. Now floating above the 3 carts, Fire Flash prepares to cut engines on Virgil's command. Suddenly, one of the elevator cars loses control, throwing it off course and forcing the Fire Flash into the air again.
Fire Flash, overshoot! Overshoot!
After the first attempt failed, Captain Hansen points out that the radiation safety factor has expired and will be exposed if not down in a couple minutes. The 2 remaining elevator cars retake their position, and a 4th car emerges from the pod. With only 1 chance left, the Fire Flash makes its final approach. The carts continue tracking, and with Fire Flash floating above them once again, the pilots cut engines and touch down on the carts. Suddenly the carts begin to struggle, realizing that Fire Flash is nearly out of power.
We're not gonna make it! We're running out of runway!
As they apply the maximum brakes, Virgil loses control of his elevator cart, causing the front tip of the Fire Flash to collapse and drag along the runway. However, inside the engine, the bomb begins to slip from its place, and as the elevator carts and the Fire Flash come to a complete stop, it falls off the hydraulic system, dangling from the tape, resulting in it to fail to explode. It was mission accomplished.
They made it. They made it! Jolly good show, old boy.
And what a show.
Virgil survives the crash. However, we cross to Lady Penelope chasing after the Hood. Parker activates a hidden gun in the F.A.B. and fires at the police car, taking it out along with the Hood's pictures.
My my pictures. They are ruined. Someone will pay for this. International Rescue haven't heard the last of me.
The episode ends with the gang celebrating their first victory in their business, as Jeff says the words meaning the beginning of their journey.
Boys, I think we're in business.
Number 3. Vault of Death. This was actually the first episode I ever watched, and I knew I had to add this one to the list, because I still remember it holding a place in my heart. Interestingly, the first half of this episode focuses on Lady Penelope and Parker, as the episode begins with them hacking into the Bank of England to crack the combination of the latest vault. After over 2 hours, they cracked the code and opened the vault. The two are then greeted by the workers of the Bank of England, turning out this whole thing was a test for the vault. The test was given to them in a letter by the manager of the Bank of England, named Lord Silton, who states that after the test, the latest vault they have now is not impregnable enough, and must be remodeled into a way more secure one.
Well, I have positive proof that this strong room is just not good enough.
Meanwhile, at the Parkmore Scrubs prison, a massive brawl breaks out. Unknown, however, a prisoner named Light-Fingered Fred escapes and takes hiding in one of the trash cans. The next day, at the Bank of England, Lord Silton presents his supervisor Lovegrow the new vault that has been installed that runs on an electronic key that is owned by Lord Silton. As it was closing time, Lovegrow marks the roll to ensure that all the workers in the vault are present. As the roll was marked, Lord Silton uses the electronic key to close up the vault and places it in his briefcase that he keeps with him at all times. However, on the other side of the door, we take a peek inside the vault to discover a man named Lambert was trapped in the vault after being mistaken by one of the workers to believing he left the vault earlier, meaning he is locked in. To make matters worse, this vault has limited oxygen, meaning that once it's drained out will result in Lambert suffocating to his death. Lovegrow contacts Lambert through the radio, but due to him being a very busy man, Lambert wishes for no distractions, and rightfully so.
I gave orders I was not to be disturbed. These figures must be finished.
Later, we cut to Penelope's manor, where she invites Lord Silton over for dinner. Meanwhile, Parker is on a break while drinking and smoking at the same time. As he prepares to eat, he is given a newspaper with an article that shocks him, stating that Lightfinger Fred has escaped from prison, meaning Parker may actually have a connection with him. Elsewhere, the trash can Fred is hiding in falls out of the truck, resulting in his escape as a success. Back at Penelope's manor, the emergency call system goes off in Lord Silton's case, stating he's needed at the Bank of England. As Penelope suggests that the bank could be robbed, we get a hilarious moment from Parker's reaction to it.
Big jubbin! Who comes in, nincompoop?
Things get crazier. As Lord Silton calls up Lovegrow, Parker cuts the fuse to the video phone, cutting off the call. Lady Penelope then suggests taking Lord Silton to the bank by F.A.B 1. Along the way, the car is barely moving, and Lady Penelope is starting to feel something is up with Parker, and rightfully so, as he drives off to Nowhere Heath instead of London. Back at the bank, the air in the vault is nearly half empty, with only 90 minutes left. With no word from Lord Silton, Lovegrow instead calls up International Rescue. Jeff calls up Scott to head off to the Bank of England in Thunderbird 1, while Virgil and Alan take off in Thunderbird 2 with Pod 5. Along the way, the air in the vault is now halfway down. As they arrive, John reports to Jeff that he got word from Scott that the mole cannot be used. They try using powerful heating guns to burn their way into the vault, but weren't having much luck. Meanwhile, Penelope, Parker, and Lord Silton arrive at Lover's Leap, where Penelope has a word with Parker about why he refuses to bring them to London. With no way out of this, Parker comes clean, and we get a backstory about Parker, where it is revealed when he was in prison, he shared a cell with Lightfinger Fred and believes he's the reason that this emergency call from the bank could be why.
I shall break into the vault, and I personally
will sue the Bank of England.
So instead, Lady Penelope decides to take over and drive on to the Bank of England, resulting in some reckless but hilarious driving.
This is to be!
Back at the bank, Virgil and Alan have no luck getting the door open. But as Scott and Lovegrove were looking at one of the blueprints of the bank, they discover a weak spot underneath the vault. With only 1/4 of air left in the vault, Scott decides to call up base for any ideas. And thanks to Grandma Tracy, she brings up an old, abandoned subway tunnels that she and her grandma used to take back in the old days.
It seems I remember when I was a little girl, my grandma talking about the old London subway. Trains under the ground. New York had them as well.
Virgil and Alan find them and travel on these hoverbikes to find the bank. Later on, Lambert was heating up and find it hard to breathe, as he decides to step out for a moment. But as he gets to the exit, he discovers that the door is sealed shut.
I am locked in. There. The air's nearly pumped out.
As Lady Penelope hurries to the Bank of England, the vault is nearly out of air, and Lambert starts to suffocate.
Try and get help.
Back with Ellen and Virgil, the two find the weak spot and plant an explosive on it to blast their way into the vault. Penelope, Parker, and Lord Silton finally arrive just in time as the vault was out of air. However, Lord Silton realized that he left his briefcase with the key back at Lady Penelope's. Parker then studied the lock and got an idea to opening it with a hairpin. Back in the vault, as Lambert was on the edge of death, Virgil and Alan blast their way through just in time. Parker uses the hairpin on the lock and the door opens up, and it's another mission accomplished.
Right, now just take it easy.
The danger's over now.
After the rescue, the episode ends with Lightfinger Fred breaking into the vault and mocks it after noticing it already been broken into.
They call this place burglar-proof. They do better to use my kid's piggy bank.
Number 2. The Uninvited. I remember the first time I saw this episode on TV way back then. The episode begins with Scott on his way back from Tokyo, where he is suddenly attacked by 3 terrorist jets. One of them shoots Sir Thunderbird 1 and crashes in the middle of the desert. After crashing, Scott looks outside and suddenly passes out. At Tracy Island, Jeff tries radioing Scott, but gets no word and sends Virgil, Brains, and Tintin out to go find him. Meanwhile, we are introduced to 2 archaeologists named Lindsay and Wilson, who are on an excursion to find the lost Pyramid of Commandades. When Lindsay spots Thunderbird 1, the 2 of them go to check it out, where they find Scott passed out and go to check on him, as Scott wakes up.
Hey, you're hurt.
I'll survive.
Lindsay, get the first aid from the Jeep.
Right.
As the 2 prepare to nurse Scott, he requests them to radio International Rescue to let them know he's alright, and Jeff gets the word from John about it.
Wow. Well, I'm sure relieved to hear that.
After finding the position, Thunderbird 2 finds Scott and the 2 men, and they settle for the night, where Lindsay and Wilson explain to them about their excursion.
Well, some explorers claim to have caught sight of the lost Pyramid of Commandades. And then others say it was just a mirage and that they just imagined the whole thing.
The next day, after Scott and the others made it back to base, Lindsay and Wilson continue their excursion. At one point, their supply trailer detaches and explodes, leaving them with nothing. Meanwhile, Scott takes Alan up to the Thunderbird 5, where he will be put in charge while John is on a break, where we also get a cool demonstration on how members of International Rescue board the space station. As Alan and John switch places, Alan listens in on the 2 men who are trying out their radio to contact their base camp.
Come in, Salah. Do you read me?
Band 794 again.
Along the way, Lindsay and Wilson find an oasis where they hope to find water, but only finds it empty. However, just as they were beginning to lose hope, Lindsay spots something in the distance, revealing to be the one thing that they've been searching for all this time.
Holy smoke! We found it, boy! We found it!
Yeah, it's what we came all this way to see. A lost pyramid of Commandades.
The two men head for the pyramid and find a way inside, only to end up getting trapped. Scott gets sent out to find the two men as he takes off in Thunderbird 1. Meanwhile, Lindsay and Wilson journey into the pyramid to see what they could find, and their luck pays off as they find a fountain to hydrate. Back with Scott, he finds the tracks and follows them, leading him to the Pyramid of Commandades. As he touches down, Lindsay and Wilson were at the fountain taking a much-needed drink, where Lindsay suggests going deeper into the pyramid where he believes could hold treasure. As Scott enters the pyramid, he gets sealed in and hears the voices of Lindsay and Wilson, and decides to go investigate. In another chamber, Lindsay and Wilson find treasure, and at the exact moment, Scott shows up in time to help them. But due to the obsession of greed, Lindsay thinks Scott only wants the treasure, and the two engage in a crazy gunfight. Lindsay gains the upper hand, unarming and snagging Scott's gun as he takes out the statue he uses for cover and prepares to finish him off.
There's no more protection, Tracy. Now you will die.
Suddenly, a door opens up, and Lindsay is knocked out cold by two men who happen to be the terrorists that shot down Thunderbird 1. Meanwhile, after hearing no word from Scott, Jeffka sends out Thunderbird 2 to the pyramid. However, as we cut back to the pyramid, Scott, Wilson, and a knocked-out Lindsay is taken hostage by the terrorists as they ride a rail cart, where it is revealed that the pyramid is their base. Scott spots the three fighters that attacked him the other day, wonders what's gonna happen next. The three are taken to see their leader of the organization, who he and his henchmen speak in a foreign language.
Garanga kapuko otulo. Nick tarasa.
One of the henchmen detects Thunderbird 2 approaching the pyramid, and the terrorists attempt to launch missiles at it. Scott and Wilson hatch an escape plan as the terrorists prepare to fire the missiles. Wilson unarms one of the terrorists and knocks him out, as Scott grabs the gun and fires at the controls, where the missiles fire too early and miss Thunderbird 2. As the terrorists shoot at Wilson and Scott, Wilson starts up the cart while one of the henchmen sound their sirens, and we are given an epic escape scene. Along the way, Scott shoots at a henchman where he lands on a lever and releases highly explosive gas. Now the pyramid is set to self-destruct.
When this place blows, it's gonna go up with one mighty big bang. We've got to warn Virgil to stay clear.
As the cart reaches the other side, Lindsay wakes up and regains himself. Thankfully, as one of the henchmen collapses on a button, the door opens up, giving the three men a chance to escape. As Thunderbird 2 arrives, Scott informs them to evacuate before the pyramid goes off. Scott and Lindsay and Wilson board Thunderbird 1 and take off, and the lost Pyramid of Commandades goes off with a bang. All thanks to Scott, Lindsay and Wilson have been saved and are safely returned to their base camp. And now, ladies and gentlemen, my top pick for the #1 spot and gold medal for the best episode on my list. Number 1. Operation Crash Dive. I'm sure you remember I said that the Fireflash is my all-time favorite aircraft, and so of course my top pick would involve it. But why this one? Well, this was the episode that introduced the Fireflash to me, and I can never stop loving this episode. And what a story this episode has to offer to us. We are given a mystery at the start, as the episode begins at London Airport, with Fireflash 3 taking off on its flight to San Francisco, where it suddenly disappears without a trace. Commander Norman returns and commences Operation Seahawk, where many jets and ships are sent out to search for Fireflash 3, but return with no luck, leaving Norman and his assistant puzzled. Meanwhile, a meeting with the International Air Minister is in session, where he proposes for all fire flashes to be grounded with pending tests. Jeff, John, and Tintin listen in on the report about Fireflash 3's disappearance. Jeff calls up Alan to monitor all transmissions on the Fireflash. Alan points out that before Fireflash 3 disappeared, the crew radioed their position, which turned out to be wrong.
According to our automatic fixer, the Fireflash crew radioed a wrong position before they disappeared. They were more than 50 miles out.
Later on, as tests for the Fireflash were in session, a plan for a big test flight with Fireflash is presented by Commander Norman, where 2 pilots volunteer. Once aboard Fireflash, they take off and the test begins. Up at Thunderbird 5, Alan is listening in on the Fireflash test, where he sees the position they are in is different from the one the crew mentioned. However, in the middle of the flight, the elevator power unit fails and the controls of Fireflash malfunction. As the pilots report London Tower, they reveal the position where they received the problem, which turned out to be the same one as Fireflash 3.
Our position is TS 749 stroke AP 428.
Just as we feared. It's the same trouble in the same position.
Fireflash starts to head down towards the sea. However, we see someone parachute out, meaning the plane has been hijacked. Fireflash makes a big splash into the ocean, and the 2 pilots try to escape. As the 2 struggle to break the door open, Fireflash starts to sink.
Quick! We're going under!
After crashing to the bottom of the ocean, Jeff sets Scott, Virgil, Gordon, and Brains out, where Scott takes Thunderbird 1 and sets up at a farm not far from the coast, while Virgil takes Thunderbird 2 with Pod 4 along with Gordon and Brains to find the crashed site of the Fireflash. Along the way, Brains gets an idea on what happened to Fireflash, stating that the hydraulic system damaged after crashing into the sea, causing the door to the flight deck to be jammed, trapping the 2 pilots inside and stuck at the bottom of the sea. As Thunderbird 2 reaches the ocean, Pod 4 is released and Gordon jumps into action in Thunderbird 4. At the farm, Scott navigates Gordon, pointing him in the direction of the crash site. However, as we see the Fireflash resting at the bottom, the 2 pilots spot Thunderbird 4 and use flashlights to signal to Gordon.
Look! Quick! Put on all the lights you can.
And thanks to those lights, Gordon spots it and finds Fireflash. Back in Thunderbird 2, Brains suggests cutting off the engines of the Fireflash to make it float to the surface. Gordon scuba dives to the flight deck and sends messages to the pilots on a special light type, stating what they will do. After the pilots agree, Gordon returns to Thunderbird 4 and uses a powerful laser to cut both engines off, and the Fireflash floats to the surface.
Okay, Gordon, she's surfaced.
F.A.B. coming up alongside her.
Gordon climbs up to the flight deck and melts the glass to break the 2 pilots free, as Thunderbird 2 sends an escape capsule down for them to climb in.
Come on!
Once saved, Thunderbirds 2 and 4 clear the area and Fireflash explodes into flames. After the mission was a success, Jeff congratulates the gang, and Scott comes in with a little gift basket after helping out on the farm he landed at, which I find pretty funny.
Hey, sorry I'm late, folks. I had to milk the cows before I took off.
However, a call comes in from Alan who states that a top-level meeting for the Fireflash is in session, where we see Commander Norman, his assistant, along with other members, meeting with the International Air Minister, trying to figure out the cause of the fault in Fireflash. And so Jeff decides that this is something for international rescue, as he delivers a powerful decision.
I think it's time for international rescue to act.
The next day, London Airport gets a letter from International Rescue about hosting a top-secret operation for a Fireflash test flight over the same route. And accepting the offer, we are given a new Fireflash and the return of Captain Hansen from the first episode. And this time, with Scott as the co-pilot, which I find pretty cool. The operation is divided into 4 segments: Fireflash, Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 5, and London Tower. As Fireflash takes off, the test begins, this time with Thunderbird 2 following behind. Along the way, the same pattern breaks out again.
Looks as if the elevator power unit...
Fireflash. Come in, Fireflash. They've gone dead, sir.
It's the same pattern. The same pattern. First the EPU, then the radio goes.
With only 15 minutes to spare, Gordon is suited up and prepares to board Fireflash. As Thunderbird 2 positions under Fireflash, Scott and Hansen open the hatch, and Gordon spots the terrorist inside. As Gordon boards Fireflash, he discovers the problem of the fault where the EPU cables have been cut. Suddenly, he is confronted by the terrorist he saw earlier, who reveals he was behind all of this.
In just a couple of minutes more, it's gonna make a mighty big splash in the ocean and then disappear like all the others.
As the two gun each other, the terrorist attempts to escape, but is shot by Gordon as he falls out. With not much time left, Gordon merges the two cables together just in time, and the Fireflash is raised back into the air, saved just in time before colliding with the ocean. At the end of the episode, the Tracys were watching the report about their mission success. The TV cuts off, and Grandma Tracy points out that the fuse to the oven blew, and Virgil and Scott suggests Gordon doing what he did before back on board Fireflash, giving us a laugh to wrap up the episode.
Yeah, you remember what you said after the Fireflash episode, Gordon? Just like fixing a fuse, you said.
Here I go again.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up the list of my top 10 Thunderbirds episodes. Boy, what a journey it's been. I hope you enjoyed the video, and before I end this video, I would like to give a big thanks to the creator Gerry Anderson for all the joy you brought to our lives over the years with your incredible work that stood the test of time. Your legacy continues to inspire us today, including me. And with that, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, favorite, and share, and I will see you all in the next video.